All right, guys. How's everything going? It's your boys, Johnny, Elias. Doing an audio only pod here. Traditionally, I think that's how most podcasts are done. I wanted to get some videos out so you guys could see that I'm not just some robot making my post. But anyway, what I'd like to do here in this mini pod this morning is go over some last minute things with respect to the NFL. Quick note, did some articles about the CFL. Both of our hits, or we hit both last night, and then went 2-0 the night before. That's 4-0 total, I believe, since we started, or since I started this account and podcast. The articles were there, the statistical justification was there, the graphs, visuals. Maybe I can do something like that in the future for something else. But if you didn't see it or you didn't read it, you kind of missed out. All right, what I also wanted to do this morning is I want to find a total. And I did this exercise last night, and the line hasn't moved enough to where it's going to affect the whole purpose of this exercise. All right, so here's what I would go in to do if I wanted to look at a potential total. All right, now, the first thing I would do is go to the look ahead lines. All right, I'm going to go to the look ahead lines. And the game that I was eyeing before, but that's I'll just find it in the look ahead lines, is Jacksonville and Houston. Now, looking back from last week, from week 3, the look ahead line for week 4 was 45 for the total. Okay. I should have double checked to see what the current line is, but I don't think that it has moved from that, but it's not really going to, I believe, matter all that much. I'm just pulling up the screen here, just because if I don't check, there'll be some like 4-point ultra seam move. All right, that shows the spread. Let's grab our totals. All right, so it's 44.5, and there's actually a 45 plus 100 of Bovada. So we're getting closer from the look-ahead lines to where the actual market line is this week. All right, so after I look at the look-ahead lines, the next thing I would do is the weather. Here we're indoors, so it's not going to matter, but a quick thing to realize about the weather, besides maybe Sunday and Monday, where all these plays are made on weather-based game totals, it's pretty much baked into the spread after that. So the weather really isn't a huge advantage or tool, but I just like to check it anyway, just so I have an idea of what's going on. And then particularly with the wind, I believe wind is probably the biggest weather factor in the game, more so than precipitation, including just some of those ice bowl type games, games where it's extremely hot out and the players are cramping all the time. But sort of lost my train of thought there. But anyway, let's move on. But key point is that weather's kind of baked in. Oh, and wind is most important more than anything because it has influence on the kicking game. It has influence on the passing game, particularly if there are gusty winds. Some balls will just kind of dovetail or end up throwing duds, or the ball just kind of almost like a slice or something, like the wind takes it. So it's really the only time I really care about the wind. And then to a smaller extent, some injuries. If there's a quarterback injury, or I mean a real key superstar positional player, maybe you're looking at a half point, depending on, or a point, depending on how really valuable this player is. So what we would do is do that, but Houston's indoors anyway, so we have weather's not at play anyway. I'm not really going to look at the injuries because I'm not really too interested for this game, and like I said, to me, it has a minimal impact. So, all right, then what I would do here is I'm kind of looking at that look ahead number of, what did we have? Was it 40? 45. All right. So then we're going to look at some models that I have that are very, very, very basic. If needed to be, I could probably teach you guys how to build these. They're just a good jumping off point, and then one's a little more advanced, but that's something where the outputs are just shared with me. I don't do it myself, but it's not something that can really be taught right away. But even sort of just looking at publicly available information is something that can really help. And one of those things is the referees. And Warren Sharp does a great job every week talking about specific games and specific referees and how they might sway the outcome of the game. Now, he goes into great detail with some specific numbers and stats, but I just summarized it for our purposes without going through all the numbers, just for some ease of listening. But this is, even though I've kind of just summarized it, this is Warren Sharp. He put this together, someone from his site. It's not me, but it is publicly available. So I believe it's, uh, you know, it's fair use under as far as copyright's concerned. But okay, so the crew chief is, I think I'm going to say Tra Blake's, but it's probably Trey Blake's. So I'm just going to call him Blake. He's the referee for this Jaguars and Texans game. You know, the Texans are set to host the Jags, the first divisional opener for the Texans in this 2024 campaign, and both teams are following disappointing losses in the previous week. So here's a brief summation and analysis of how penalty yards and officiating by Blake may have some potential influence on this game. Penalty trends. Texas penalties. Texans are notably penalized for offensive holding and false starts, ranking high nationally in these categories amongst the other NFL teams. However, much of their infraction trouble occurs on the road, which could play to their advantage here because they are at home. Okay, Jaguars penalties. The Jags have been flagged frequently for roughing the passer, a penalty where Blake's crew is also high in enforcement. Additionally, both teams tend to draw defensive pass interference penalties, a category where Blake has historically favored calling. And then you have his own officiating style. Blake's crew tends to call fewer offensive penalties overall, but is average on false starts and below average on offensive holding. This could potentially benefit the Texans' offensive line if they can avoid penalties that they're prone to. Some game implications, home field advantage when you look at Mr. Blake here. Historical data suggests a bias towards divisional home teams when he officiates with a strong record, both straight up and against the spread. I know we're looking at totals here, but just some stuff from Warren. The Jaguars have had a losing record in games officiated by Blake, particularly on the road, which might not bode well for them in Houston. Texans performance contacts after a tough loss at Minnesota, compounded by officiating favored more offensive penalties. The Texans might find relief with Blake's crew overall known for lower offensive penalties. given the setting at NRG Stadium this afternoon and the nature of Blake's officiating, the Texans might be poised for a cleaner game offensively. The divisional home field advantage combined with Blake's tendency will likely set the stage for Houston to capitalize on their strengths and possibly repeat their dominating performance over the Jaguars from previous seasons. From a betting perspective, they do talk about the sides, um, and there's also given some historical trends on some other referees that are uh, calling some games today and how they might be affected. So I'd encourage you to go on his website if you're interested and really read the full breakdown. Uh, so yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of less offensive penalties, which should lead to more points. And the ones that they do seem to, or the one they do seem favorable to calling is pass interference, which would allow teams to, maybe convert on third down at a higher success rate than normal, which I think leans towards the over. And we also know that from these notes here that the Texans have owned the Jaguars, which plays into Blake's tendencies. And this is kind of do or die from Jacksonville here. So I think it kind of. Oh, and here's the other thing: the Jaguars have been flagged frequently for roughing the passer, and Blake's crew is high in enforcement on these. And both teams tend to draw pass interference penalties, where Blake is historically favored calling. Again, those things are help get first downs, roughing the passer. So it's really kind of favoring Houston, but Blake's crew in of itself is high in enforcement of that penalty call historically, and the defensive pass interference gets you potential first down, or you just got to heave something up, and who knows what happens. Anyway, so then we look to the models here. But first, with the more advanced model, we do have some breakdowns of some just time of possession stats and things like that, at least for the Jags specifically. Their game scripts, we're looking at pass. Pace, we have neutral. Looking at about, I think, 65 game plays, and seconds per play on the game for them, we're looking at 27.53, 65% pass, or 63% pass, 37% run split. Pass run split is what we're forecasting. Oh, I'm sorry, that it should be 58% and 42%. Nope, wrong again. Wow, okay. Yep, 63 and or 62 and 38. All right. That's a split. Sorry, guys. I have all the splits charted from the outputs that I was given. I don't actually have like the model here to rerun because it's not mine. And then for my really basic model, so that's basically going to come up with a projection. By the way, for a total of 52.53 points, which definitely favors the over. And then my far more basic model that is actually from me also seems to favor the over. And again, I looked at this yesterday, so I apologize that it's taken me a while to go back through some of these, but Where is okay, Houston, Jacksonville. I had 47.1, so against that points to the over 44.5. So officiating is not a huge lean one way or the other, but I think it definitely leans a little bit over. Uh, we have weather a non-factor. The look ahead gives a slight bump to the over. And then we have our models both favoring the over. So we're going to go with an over 44.5 on Jacksonville and Houston. And so you see some, model outputs that account for some of this, but you also see some empirical things you can do in looking for these totals. I'm going to talk WNBA very quickly. Just sort of more of a play if you're into that type of thing instead of the NFL. There are two good teams playing, Las Vegas Aces and the New York Liberty, for anybody who follows any WNBA, and we like Las Vegas +4. I'd like to start doing maybe some DFS in the morning, but what I decided to do today instead, before we close this out, is talk about a parlay. First of all, because I know you guys love parlays, they to me are sucker bets, with the exception of some things you can do with round robins. But I have a 30% boost from signing up to ESPN Bet, and I figured I would use it on a parlay because it has to be a bet that is plus 400 or higher. So we did a 4-team parlay to get a payoff with the boost that would be plus 704. The 4 teams based on the following lines: San Francisco minus 550, Tampa Bay minus 105, Atlanta minus 145, and Chicago minus 155. All right. That basically does it for me here on this mini pod. I don't want to go any further. I have to prepare for the games, maybe get some wings, maybe get some pizza, see if some of the boys want to come over. It's a little different today because the Giants played on Thursday.